We are back with an episode of a very much talked about subject, which is turning a friends with benefits or a situationship into a relationship. And, of course, because I am trying to give you the best information possible, this is something that I would consider to be the exception and not the rule in the case of making that happen. When you get into a situationship or friends with benefits where the commitment part really isn't there, it doesn't often shift over because for whatever reason, it just honestly doesn't do that very often. I think that if one of these kinds of like a friends with benefits situation is something that works for you, then that's one thing, but we're not talking about that here. We're talking about, when you can see that it's clearly turning into something commitment based, or that it is going to be stuck in this pattern. And I will tell you that I know people who have been stuck in these kinds of situations for years, not getting what they actually would like to have. So what I'm going to talk about first is what it looks like when you are in the holding pattern of a friends with benefits or a situationship that's not going anywhere. And stuff that might be said. So first of all, there'll be a lot of ambiguity. And what I mean by that is, people saying stuff like, I don't really want to put a label on it. Let's just kind of see how things go. I'm having fun with what we're doing now. And anytime anything is brought up, they could even evade, the conversation and just not want to talk about it much and just be like, well, can we just focus on what we're doing and, let's go have a good time or whatever. And that conversation, if you try to bring it up, will be swept under the rug in one way or another. I'll also talk about behaviors that you will notice that are very typical that can keep you hanging on and kind of keep you in a state of high alert and anxiety, which feels a little exciting for people, and especially people with what I've talked about a little bit about attachment styles before, but people who are prone to anxious attachment styles, or just kind of always looking for that text or that validation or something like that, fall into these often. So some of the stuff that might happen is you might have plans with this person and they'll flake at the last minute, or they'll try to make plans at the last minute, or they'll keep you waiting. For instance, maybe you had plans at 3 and then they're like, can we move it to 5? And then next thing you know, they're moving it to 7, and then maybe you meet up and maybe they completely cancel on you. And something like that is, this is part of that pattern of you're definitely in that situationship, friends with benefits level of relationship, which is not maybe going where you want it to go if you do want something committed eventually. Other things, it's the biggest thing is you'll notice a lack of consistency, and maybe late night calls or texts trying to get you to it's the whole stereotypical booty call thing, or they kind of just it's when it's convenient for them, or or both of you, even if it's a friends with benefits that's agreed upon, which that's what that is. It's not something that anyone is serious about. And so if you start getting you're feeling like you want more than that, or maybe you wanted more than that in the beginning, it's just not likely for it to shift. And what I want to talk about that are here are some really more tricky signs that you're in this space and it's not going anywhere even when it feels like it is. So maybe there is a lot of consistency. Like you see this person on a regular basis and you have, you set up dates or times to hang out and things are consistent and you know you can rely on this person to keep their word and things like that. However, there hasn't been the next step conversation. It's just you have this consistency and it's almost like you don't want to say anything because it feels like you're in a relationship, and you are, but it's not that committed partnership that maybe you're looking for, because the conversation is what makes it that, and then the agreements past that. So another thing is, you know, you may have a conversation about exclusivity and being monogamous. But here's something that's really bad about this, is that it's still basically what you have when you have that is you have a person where you almost have a little bit of a false sense of safety in the relationship. And what I mean by this is it feels like you're in something that's clear, consistent, and you have monogamy and exclusivity, but that's not, it's still not the full-on commitment. And what I'm saying is they haven't said, I want to be in a committed relationship with you. Because when you're in this sort of situation, this just means that you guys have a friends with benefits that nobody else is involved with. But they're still, both of you, are still free to go out and meet other people, potentially date other people, and, you know, maybe you're not sleeping with anybody else, but they could go meet somebody and say, I'm sorry, our friends with benefits situationship is over, because they might not tell you, they might ghost you, they might do a number of different things, but they may say, it's over because I met somebody else, or you'll find out they met somebody else that they do want to have a serious relationship with. So these are the things that come up that are like a little bit more confusing. Also, they might say stuff like, you could even bring up the conversation and they'd say something like, oh, you're just too good for me, or I'm bad for you, or I'm, you know, I don't know how to be a real partner, or there's like so many different excuses, and that's what they are. They're all excuses as to why, for whatever reason, they don't want to be in a relationship with you. And it can be, here's the thing too that's so hurtful about that, like I said with the other point, is this person could meet the person they want to be with tomorrow, and then you're just out of the picture. And that happens a lot with people. So if you feel like you're in this particular category where you're feeling a lot of consistency and it feels like you have like some kind of relationship that's a little bit more stable and you want more, here's how you find out if it could turn into a committed relationship. One thing is, most of the time, the other person will say something, or one of you will say something, and then you'll be like on the same page. You know, a lot of times someone will be like, you know, I know that we had agreed upon a friends with benefits, and you could say this too. However, I'm developing other feelings for you, and I would really like to see what it would be like to get into a long-term relationship with you, or start something that's more serious and more, you know, more of a committed relationship. And if they are on board with that, they will jump on that and be like, you know, I've been feeling the same way too, and I'm so glad you said something. or they will come forward and say, hey, same thing, right? If the energy of the relationship is like, it feels like it's shifted towards something more serious, it just makes it so much easier to bring these conversations up. And they'll bring it up too. Like it'll their level of consistency or whatever's happening or going on dates and all of that kind of stuff, you're not going to have a question in your mind. It's going to be very obvious. And so, but again, I think, so many other channels talk about how to make your friends with benefits and into a relationship, and they talk about using manipulative tactics. Like, I love watching a good black cat energy video. It's kind of fun. I don't know, it's in dark feminine energy and all of these different things that are talked about. However, if you're using any kind of manipulative tactic, and I mean where you're like, oh, I'm going to go cold on them now and see what happens, and then they come back. Now, just because they're coming back, it doesn't really mean anything. And what, are you going to continue to do that throughout your entire relationship, and there's no security there, and you have to like play this game of cat and mouse for the rest of your relationship? That's manipulation. That's not somebody being there and choosing to be there because they really want to be there. That's somebody who is you're creating a bad dynamic with, or that's just a bad dynamic. And that's a roller coaster, and that's not necessarily what a good, secure relationship is about. I mean, it's not even that it's not necessarily, it isn't. So I think that, it's really important if you don't want to be in a situation like this, don't do it from the beginning. Find out what somebody wants and find out what they're looking for independently of you. Like, are you looking for a relationship? If they say, if you hear the words, I'm just not ready for anything serious right now, then just don't believe them. They're not. And it might be that they're not looking for anything serious with you. But it is good to find out, like, early on, if somebody's interested in the same kind of relationship style that you are. And there's ways to talk about it without scaring someone off by saying, what are you looking to get out of dating? What are you hoping for? Are you looking for long-term commitments, or are you kind of having fun right now? You can present it in a very benign way that doesn't feel weird, but it is really good to get these things out of the way to find out what you're, to find out if this person is even what you're looking for. Because in my opinion, and even from like life experience, like turning something that isn't very serious into something that's serious, when the terms have been put forward in that way at the beginning, it doesn't often turn into anything serious. It a lot of times just fizzles out, or somebody gets hurt. I've seen people get very hurt. I've been hurt by things that were kind of like that too. So, and I think the scariest thing is if you really want a relationship and then you're settling for friends with benefits that feels like this more one that you are in a relationship. Things like that can go on for years and years, and then the next thing you know, they meet somebody. You've wasted 5-10 years on someone, and you're like, I'm finally done, and they meet the next person they meet, they fall in love with and marry, and you've wasted all this time. People who have wanted kids have wasted that kind of time. So just really pay attention and know what it is you want, and get clear and realize that this is the exception to the rule. So I hope this helps. If you like this content, or if you have any ideas, please post them below. So if you have any ideas, please post them below. And if you want to help this channel grow, please like and subscribe. And I will be here next week. I am here every Friday at 5 p.m. All right. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.